There we go. My goodness me, boys. Have you eaten something recently, or is it just me? Look at the bellies on these cheetah. Ah, what an amazing sight. Oh, what's happening there, mister? Find yourself a nice comfortable position standing on the trees. So for those of you that perhaps are joining us for the first time, this is an incredibly exciting sight. A pair of male cheetah. Probably, in terms of the animals that we see, these are pretty much the only cheetah that we've actually had the opportunity, apart from the skittish male that sometimes comes through to Djuma. These two males are the cheetah stars of our live safaris. I've never seen them this fat, though. And they're moving about, marking their territory. This is the route that they always follow. They seem to be heading towards Mala Mala, which is why it was so important that we raced in the way that we did. For a creature that is usually incredibly sleek and slender, it's wonderful to see them looking so fat and well-fed. There's no other word for it. They are positively fat. Come on, climb the tree. That's a sight that we don't often get to see, but I have seen in the past, is a cheetah climbing a tree. They're not quite as good as leopards, and in fact they're probably slightly worse than lions in terms of their tree climbing ability, but they can do it. I don't think I've ever seen such a fat cheetah in my life. Really, genuinely. I don't know what they have eaten, but they are very clearly well fed. That's amazing. Just goes to show what an impressive physique these animals have. That they are able to gorge themselves to this extent and still remain as athletic as they are. Oh, I love cheetah. We hardly ever get to see them, so this is so exciting. One of the things I'm really keen to show you all, and I don't know whether it's ever happened on a live drive, it probably has, given the history of these live safaris, but one of the things I would love to show you. Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you. Hi, guys. I'll tell you what I want to show you in a moment. Morning, how are you? Good, thanks. Awesome. Yes, little chilly. I would love to be able to show you, or for you to be able to hear the sound that cheetah make when they're calling each other. It sounds like a bird that they chirp. Look at this. Properly, oh wow, properly marking their territory. And male cheetah are so particular. They walk an almost precise route. They have particular trees, kind of like leopards and lions, but even more specific. Precise trees that they stop and mark their territory at. That cheetah is just a belly with legs. Wow. How lucky are we? And Stephanie, you say that you haven't seen a cheetah jackal oryx. Is that, yeah, cheetah jackal or oryx yet on the drive? Well, I'm very happy to show you cheetah. They are such extraordinary creatures. Sorry, it's time for us to move, actually. Let's go and catch up with them before they disappear across the Mala Mala boundary. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to show you cheetah. You could also see jackal. I'm afraid to say, though, that oryx is probably not going to happen, unfortunately. They are a far more arid-dwelling antelope. They are one of my favorite, just by the way. We call them gemsbok. 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 That hard G in Afrikaans. And they are absolutely one of my top 5 antelope to see. They're beautiful, they're strong, they're powerful. And brave, such brave. I know that that maybe sounds a little bit too anthropomorphic, but I personally think they are unbelievably brave in terms of the way that they interact with the world around them. So yes, Gemsbok would be an absolute pleasure, but unfortunately not going to happen. But cheetah and jackal, on the other hand, we can absolutely provide, and are doing so. Hello, boys. In perfect sync. Our cheetah coalition is a very, very special thing. Now, looking at these bellies, it's hard to imagine that the cheetah want to eat anything further anytime soon. But Sarah, you want to know how long it'll take to digest this meal and how long it will sustain them. A big meal like this will probably sustain them for a considerable period of time if necessary. However, because of their incredibly rapid metabolism, it's one of the things that allows them those vast bursts of speed, albeit for a very short distance. They're probably going to be back to their sleek, normal selves in 30 or so hours. That will be digested. It'll have moved through their digestive tract. And you'll find that with all predators. They gorge themselves, they look incredibly fat and comfortable, but it only lasts about 2 days, sometimes less. And in the case of a cheetah with its rapid metabolism, even less than 2 days. So if we were, which is unlikely, but if we did have the ability to see them on a more regular basis, you would see that by tomorrow morning, they'd start to look sleek again. And by a day and a half, it would be gone. And they'd be on the lookout for food once again. And even with these full bellies, they'd still potentially hunt. Oh, this is wonderful. They're moving west as opposed to south. And Vernie, thank you so much for sending through your question, and I'm so glad we could share your first cheetah sighting on Safari Live with you. Oh, flop. Yes, I'd also flop down if I was that full. Vernie, you wanted to know, because cheetah have had such a hard time as a species, and let's just go a bit closer. Oh, no, hold on. Just wait for it to stop rolling. Yeah, now we'll go closer. Vernie, you wanted to know if their numbers are recovering at all in the Kruger National Park. The Kruger National Park has the greatest meta-population of cheetah anywhere in Africa. So we have a healthy number of cheetah. Their numbers remain pretty much the same, though. And it's one of those interesting things. It's something that biologists and evolutionary biologists and scientists, conservationists have argued at length about. And the question is, how much of a cheetah's decline is actually just a natural part of their evolution? They have become hyper-specialized as a species. Oh, look at that. How amazing. Spot puddle. So as a species, cheetah have become hyper-specialized, and they just aren't all that resilient. In terms of genetic variability, they have got very, very little difference in terms of their genetics between individuals. And that is probably as a result of a population bottleneck. So something happened that wiped out most of the cheetahs in the world many, many thousands of years ago, and they just haven't quite recovered. And without genetic variability, they've got no resilience as a species. And of course, it's a difficult one, because as human beings, we have had a tremendous impact on all species in terms of habitat loss, pollution, and all sorts of other impacts that we as a species have. But at the same time, cheetah just aren't very successful. And the question is their extinction a natural part of evolution, or their gradual extinction, or have we been responsible as human beings? And it's a line that's very difficult to draw. The population in the Kruger National Park is fine. It's healthy. And looking at these cheetah and looking at these beautiful cats, anywhere in the world, or anywhere in Africa, that you have an overpopulation of lions, cheetah disappear. I'm just going to take, sorry, it's going to rock the vehicle a little bit. I'm going to take my foot off the brake. There we go. I'm frozen in joy with my foot flat on the brake. But anyway, you've got an overpopulation of lions. As I said, cheetah disappear. And that is one of the reasons why, and it's a big conversation topic, and it's a difficult conversation topic. That's one of the reasons why in this area the Sabi Sand have not intervened where the Styx cubs, for example, have had mange. And it's because it's all part of a natural population control, a natural cycle of things. It's hard for us to watch. But in a way, it will indirectly benefit creatures like these. It's a difficult one, but it is all part of nature's way. And cheetah have such a hard time of things. Now, speaking of lions, this is the only other example with our big cats that you will see of a permanent social grouping. Jessica, you want to know if it's common to see male cheetah without a female. And yes, that is how cheetah work. So females are solitary, and they actually aren't even territorial. They just have massive undefended home ranges, huge, huge areas. Oh my goodness. We're going to blow away, sorry. So Jessica, yes, the females are solitary and only ever come together with the males to mate. Males, on the other hand, form these coalitions, and unlike lions, it is very, very strict in terms of the coalitions that they form. They will only form a coalition with their brothers, sometimes on very rare occasions with cousins, but that is exceptional. It's usually brothers, and the reason behind that is, unlike a male lion coalition, where all of the members will at some point have a chance to mate and propagate their own genes, in cheetahs they have a very, very strict hierarchy. Now, one of the things, we haven't really had the option or had the chance to really observe the behavior of these cheetah to get an idea of which one is more dominant, but you'll always find that there is a more dominant brother, and only they have a chance to mate. And that's why they're so strict about the coalitions that they form, because if only one of you gets a chance to mate, it makes sense that you only want the success of your brother, because then he's propagating 50% of your genetic material. And you get cheetah coalitions, they can number up to 7, even 8 at a time, although that is relatively unusual. It's more common to see about 2 of them together, or maybe 3, usually 2. And we live and we dream in hope at Safari Live that one day we will see a female cheetah, because I haven't yet in the northern Sabi Sand. They're here, we just haven't seen them. And there we go. Hello, Fuzzman Sparkles. It's good to have you back once again. Fuzzman Sparkles, you wanted to know how big a male coalition can get. As I said, in exceptional circumstances, up to about 8. But that's relatively unusual. You're usually looking at about 2, but any number between 2 and 8 can occur in the wild. Absolutely magic. Now, I need to do some chattering on the Game Drive channel, so while I do that, we'll send you back across to Steph for an update on his side. And indeed, as Brent said, unfortunately, our cheetah are very much on their way into Mala Mala. They are standing on the boundary as we speak. But we have been incredibly fortunate to spend as much time as we have. Luckily for us, unlike most of the other safari vehicles, is of course we have the camera with the incredible capacity to zoom in. Hey Dave, though we don't have to disappear anywhere. We can stick with them. They just stopped for a moment to spend a little bit of time resting on the road, and who can blame them? With those enormous bellies, I wouldn't be planning on moving anywhere anytime soon. And there we go, cheetah watering the plains of Cheetah Plains, marking their territory. And as I said, they have regular marking spots. Watch this, now the other male's going to do it. Or not? Come on, boy. Setting a bad example. But actually, that does give us an interesting insight into the behavior of cheetah males as they mark territories, because they take turns to mark the separate boundaries and the sort of the separate objects. So one of them will go and mark one tree, the other one will go and mark the next tree, and so on. Which makes total sense, because of course saving up your stock of urine, with the two of you sort of spreading it out, you'll go twice as far. What a beautiful view. I'm still absolutely flabbergasted by those bellies. I really genuinely, I'm not joking, I have never seen such a fat cheetah in my life. They are so well fed, which of course is wonderful. Oh, James, I didn't realize that. I actually hadn't properly looked at into their eyes. And James apparently has noticed that one of these cheetah brothers has what looks to be a cataract, and he wanted to know whether or not that is related to age or if it is related to an injury. Just bear with me one moment. We're going to just catch up with them. Well, no, we're not. We're going to go and watch them as they walk further south along the boundary. James, I honestly don't know, and actually it would be relatively impossible to tell in terms of what has actually happened to them. I've been looking at their canines because earlier on I was asked a question as to how old these cheetah might be. And of course we don't know for certain. I haven't had a chance to get to know them properly. But I've been trying to look at their canines, and they don't seem to be that old in terms of the wear and tear on their teeth. Perhaps I need to have another look, but it could be injury related. But I have seen young predators, young cats. I'm thinking particularly about a lion that I was once involved in the capture of. Capture for a good reason, not a bad reason. Capture to move it to a separate population so that it could breed with them. Who had a cataract at 3 years old. So I honestly don't know the answer to that, James. And I hadn't realized one of them had a cataract. But that is a very, very distinctive feature. Sad to see them go, but happy that we got to see them. And I was actually going to talk about it was the next sentence on my lips, in terms of the cataract and identifying individual cheetah. Laura and Bob, you wanted to know, since we use spot patterns to identify leopards, how do we go about identifying cheetah? And the answer is you can use their whisker spots. Much like in lions and in leopards, it is unique to each and every cheetah, although the top row of spot patterns isn't necessarily as clear. However, one of the ways that I do it is actually essentially exactly the same way as I personally identify individual leopards. And that is the fact that their spot patterns are like fingerprints. They are completely unique to each and every individual. And you can look at them exactly the same. So whether it's the spot patterns on the bottoms, as is the view that they are currently presenting us with, or their sides or their shoulders, you just look for some of the dominant big spots. And you slowly but surely, it's not as easy as leopards, I have to say. Again, that's because of the lack of genetic diversity in a cheetah population. So it's not as easy as leopards, but you can learn to identify individual cheetah by their spot patterns. Like hyena as well. Very, very similar way of doing things. You just have to look really closely, and it usually involves the use of pictures, which is something I used to do where I used to work, because we had 6 cheetah that we saw regularly. Babalo and Lesedi, 2 males, and then Songo and Sanana, also 2 males, and then 2 females, Naledi and Kusala. And we learned eventually to identify each and every single individual cheetah. Don't go. Come back. They are such beautiful cats. I mentioned earlier that it is fantastic to see them with such round bellies, and we've spoken at length about the fact that a cheetah as a species is a relatively unsuccessful one. And Sean, you wanted to know what their success rate in terms of hunting is compared to lions. And the answer to that is that their success rate is less than that of a lion. It's area dependent, of course, and it's prey density dependent. There's a lot of factors that will determine a predator's success rate. But for the most part, a cheetah, that's an inconvenient place for you to lie down. Oh, luckily this one's continuing. You're probably looking at around less than 20% of hunts initiated actually result in kills, which is really tough, especially for the female cheetah with their cubs. There's so much out here that is a threat to them. And in terms of the predator hierarchy, cheetahs sit right at the bottom. They really are, as a species, not particularly resilient. Just a couple of things to remark upon before our cheetah disappear. First of all, look at the color of their eyes and how dark they are. And then also look at the tear tracks that run along in the inside of each eye. And that, of course, is a product of the fact that they are diurnal hunters rather than nocturnal ones. So much like sports stars sort of paint the dark paint along their cheeks to reduce the glare, that's exactly why a cheetah have those markings. Hi, Jamie. Sorry, I'm not just saying hello to myself, by the way. There is actually another guide called Jamie. I haven't completely lost my marbles. Sandy, you wanted to know, you were wondering about how cheetah paws compare to a leopard or a hyena. And Sandy, what I'd like to do, oh, how convenient. Thank you very much, mister. What I'd like to do is actually draw them for you, because it's probably the best way, unless we can find their tracks. But unfortunately, the soil is so wet that it's sort of hard, and they're not going to have left tracks. To give you a rough idea, you can see the claws. In that way, they are similar to hyenas. They, of course, do not have retractable claws like lions or leopards. So the claws are visible in the track. It sort of looks like a hyena track, but it's like it's sort of halfway between a hyena track and a leopard track. They're more elongated than the leopard tracks, and they have the 3 lobes, but the 3 lobes at the back of the pad are quite sharp. Very sharp, in fact, and quite angular. And then, as I said, they have the claws, and they have the way of walking like leopards or lions, where their back foot falls very close to their front foot on each side. The other thing is, which is completely unique to the cheetah, and I think the wildebeest is the other exception to this. Remember how we've always spoken about how with different animals, the front foot, the front track is always bigger than the back track. It's rounder, it bears most of the weight. In cheetah, it's the complete opposite, and in fact, their back track is larger than their front track, and that's purely for traction. Their back feet are larger so that they can take off in the way that they do. It's an adaptation for speed. Okay, I do need to do some chattering on the Game Drive channel again, just in order to get some vehicles here before these cheetah disappear. So while we do that, let's head across to Brent, who has got a lion on the move.